Peggy 18.
Hi, my name is Leon Hurley. I am Associate Editor for officialplaystationmagazine.co.uk.
Hello, and I'm Dave Boddington, Head of Video Production for Future Games.
And we're looking at the new God of War trailer, God of War Ascension.
Definitely
Now,
not God of War 4.
Interestingly, yes, specifically not named as God of War 4, which suggests it's going to sort of slot in rather than be the next game in the series.
Many know the legend of Kratos, the mortal turned god who brought down the very walls of Olympus. But there was a time before Kratos became the monster known as the Ghost of Sparta.
Now here, Gaia, the game's consistent narrator, talking about times before things. Now, the things she mentioned are sort of all over the place. She says before the Ghost of Sparta, so before he killed his family. But she also mentions before going mad, which was after he killed his family. But she also mentions before breaking his blood oath to an unjust god, which is sort of when he might have killed Kratos. So it suggests several points in time, possibly a Hitman contract style look back at past events. Something this sort of torturous, you know, him being in hell, remembering stuff kind of setup suggests.
Yeah, this is the thing about this, isn't it, Leon? Like, it looks a lot as though, well, you know, it's only just to have got their chronology all wrong, clearly.
No.
So this is actually an active decision they made to try and push like multiple parts throughout Kratos' storyline.
It suggests, I mean, she suggests each time, it suggests multiple kind of points in Kratos' history, because she says a time and this, a time and that. So it sort of seems to be picking out specific points in his life, but they seem to be different. Like say, the Ghost of Sparta happened when he's coated with the ashes of his dead family. So before the Ghost of Sparta means before he killed his family.
Yeah.
A time when something other than rage consumed him.
And rage consuming him thing is weird because he's pretty much angry his entire life.
Yeah, he has been angry mostly.
Yeah, like from the moment when Demios, his brother, was stolen by the gods as a child. You know, he's angry from sort of that point on. So I'm not quite sure when he wasn't angry. And also the reference to the madness that plagued him. That is, he went mad after he killed his family because of the nightmares and the torment, drove him crazy. So we've already got like Ghost of Sparta, the madness. Those are two separate times in his life.
A time when, in spite of the madness that plagued him, Kratos would break his blood oath to an unjust god.
Okay, so hold on. What do we know about his exploits before he murdered his family? Then, you know, what
he
was he mucking around doing before then?
He was a Spartan general, very successful one, sort of travelling around sort of Greece, kicking the country's ass,
having
basically.
Fun.
Yeah, you know, hanging out, spearing Romans.
Lovely.
And then he, well, first of all, very early on in his life, the gods had a prophecy about a marked one that would bring down Olympus. They came into Kratos' village, stole his brother Demios because he had a huge birthmark, which is what Kratos modelled his tattoo on. So they stole Demios, took him off. Kratos got quite upset about that, couldn't rescue him, but then tattooed himself with Demios' birthmark and also got a scar in the process from, I forget which god now, but he ended up being the marked one. They got the wrong guy. Grew up, became a general, travelled Greece, killed a lot of people.
Yeah.
Then he met the barbarian king who defeated him, and at the moment when he was about to be killed, he called out to Ares and basically said, I'll be your lapdog if you help me.
Ares!
Exactly, yeah.
He
So
does do that quite a lot.
Ares kills the barbarian king. He is bound with these the blades of chaos, and then becomes indentured to Ares. He has to work for Ares. This sort of 10 years of servitude, which is when they talk.
The first game's all about, well, God of War 1 is all about him just trying to track down Ares and
he finds a way of extracting his revenge on the gods. And there is a lot of reference in the series to changing fate. There's a loom of fate. There's sort of time travel. So there is this sort of time hopping.
So okay, we know what happens at the start. What happens at the end of God of War 3? You know, where does his story finish up at the moment?
God of War 3 sort of ends with basically the world ruined. He sort of destroyed the world by, I think, destroying Olympus sort of destroys the world. And you see him standing on you sort of see him looking over the cliffs of, looking over the world now that chaos reigns. Yeah. And there is, I think there's a tomb as well. You see like a tomb, or where he ultimately dies, and you sort of see a phoenix on it, and then I think there's like blood trails going away from it. Suggesting,
I remember it does all go pretty weird at the end.
Yeah, he's unleashed chaos on the world. It's all gone to cock, and then the last thing you sort of see is the impression that he's somehow risen up and got away.
So
and he's come back from the dead a lot. So.
Putting all this together then, looking at the way this trailer seems to indicate, quite a jumbled chronology, could it be that actually this game is sort of a non-time specific one where maybe we're going back and putting right the wrongs that have taken place throughout his illustrious career?
Well, yeah, potentially there does seem to be a time hopping element, but the tagline for it at the moment, I've just remembered, is before he was a god, he was a man, which kind of implies, again, this sort of idea it's going back before the events of the previous games, but he was a man in the first game and I think Chains of Olympus.
So you're saying it could be like The Sims Spartan style, just like, keeping house, that kind of stuff? Or?
No, I mean there is a strong rumour actually there'll be multiplayer or some kind of online multiplayer component, but yeah, it seems to suggest it's going to go before the previous games, although he has been human before. So it's a suggestion. I mean, one of the rumours going around is it will be kind of pre-powers, and it will be just much more of he's just a warrior rather than a sort of a slightly supernaturally enhanced man. Yeah. Whether that means no Blades of Chaos, because that's obviously the
I know, well, exactly. This is the thing. Like in the other games where you've been able to switch weaponry, all you ever want is the Blades of Chaos. Yes. Really, like you try the swords and stuff for like 2 minutes, then you're like, no, back to Blades of Chaos. They're infinitely better.
So it could potentially mark quite a big change, because there's never been any sort of. I mean, he's had Blades of Athena, but prior to the Blades of Chaos, there's no sort of mention of any kind of long, lashy kind of weapons in his inventory. It's always just been swords and spears and stuff. So it could be a more traditional kind of hack and slash without that kind of ranged combat. Interestingly, the game director for this is Todd Pappy, who was the game designer for the combat scenarios, which suggests, I mean, it's always been about the combat, but they've taken one of the combat designers and now made him the director. So if there's possibly any way of making it more combat heavy, they've chosen the right guy for it.
Yeah. And the other thing, of course, is just in terms of subject matter, we've seen most of the Greek myths, already plundered in previous iterations of the game, and in this, you see Athena, Medusa, Cerberus, a load of Spartans. You see his wife. What sort of things?
Possibly a Roman as well. There's a helmet.
Yeah, there is definitely a helmet
that doesn't look particularly Greek.
Cut to helmet. Yeah, no, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what how they go about managing that. And
what is left, because the
treading old ground.
Yeah, the first 3 games and the 3 PSP ones have been a fairly comprehensive kind of whistle-stop tour of titans and gods and monsters. There's not a lot left of Greek mythology that Kratos hasn't speared and stamped on. So what is left will be interesting. Maybe that is half the reason for. Maybe the idea of this time-hopping thing, maybe if we go back in the past to when he's a general and fighting wars, it will be more of a war game. God, I hope not like Dynasty Warriors, but that may be a move more towards that, like big battles, big conflicts from Greek history, rather than tearing Cyclops' eyes out.
Yeah, I wonder if it might lend itself to almost like a slightly Dark Souls treatment, something that is hard as nails and just a total reinvention of the series. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think
if he's immortal again, maybe.
I think they've got to do something different, because we've had like 5 odd games of whippy Blades of Chaos cutting up monsters. If it does the same thing again, I think it could be a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, you don't want to. Yeah, exactly. Flogging a.
And the fact they haven't called it 4 suggests it's almost not that it's separate to the main canon, but it's very clearly not number 4, which implies that it might be in some way different to have earned a subtitle rather than a number.
It's not quite a reboot, but it's definitely something else.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, as you can see, the sting at the end says PlayStation 3. Is this going to be a PlayStation 3 title?
I think that's what the sting at the end says, yeah.
But Leon, maybe.
I think it would be. It's difficult for misdirection, I think. I mean, they obviously, they can't. They can't say it's a PS4 because that's not official yet. I think if it was for Vita, they would very clearly say it was for Vita, because it would be a big coup for the Vita to have that game. It would be a big boost. Potentially, it could be. They could suddenly pull away the curtain and it actually will be for PS4. But they said so specifically it's a PS3. I think it's unlikely that they would suddenly change it.
Okay.
Maybe that's why this is Ascension rather than 4. Maybe 4 is
4 could be that
for the PS4, and this is the kind of the last gasp on PS3.
Like that.
Yeah,
they'll like that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, interestingly, I think what we can't see here, obviously, there's no mention of Vita at all with any of this, but what would seem likely that maybe we'll see is some sort of crossover between a Vita area of the game and a PS3 area of the game, some sort of management that you can do on the fly which affects the world.
Well, if they go for, if the online rumours are true, and maybe they do go for this before spin when he was a general and a warrior. Maybe, you know, on the PS3 you'll be fighting the battles, you'll be going in and you know, actually getting involved in the wars, whereas on the Vita there could be a sort of a companion app where you're sort of managing supplies and checking your maps. Maybe you could see sort of territories of other people and you could sort of declare war on them, and then I mean, maybe that's how it worked. Maybe it would be like you know, you fight wars against other people where you're there was a game, I believe it was on another console, where you could direct an army and fight at the same time. So you were running around with a big sword, laying into people, slicing them up to pieces, but at the same time you were directing archers, you were pointing cavalry, you were sort of bringing your infantry round the flanks. And so maybe it could be something like that you fight those battles on PS3, but on Vita you're managing, you know, the online world, seeing what people are up to, seeing what sort of invites to battles, sorting out your supplies, trading things.
It's exciting times. Well, if anyone out there's got any ideas of any of this, or what you might like to see in God of War Ascension, you know, let us know in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel.
God of War Ascension.